terrifying, unexplained Reddit stories. I knew something felt off about one of my childhood friends. When I think back to my childhood, my memories are a mixture of the innocent and the eerie. Growing up in a small town where everyone knew each other, my friends and I spent our days exploring the woods and the fields that surrounded our neighbourhood. It was the summer of 15 years ago, the summer where we met Bernard. Michael, Zachary and I were inseparable. Michael was the kind of kid who could make friends with anyone. He had a smile that could light up a room and a laugh that was contagious. Zachary was different. He was half friend, half bully, always teasing and testing us, but in his own way he was loyal. The three of us had our own little world, a realm of adventure and secrets that only we knew. One afternoon, while we were playing hide and seek in the woods behind Zachary's house, we stumbled upon a boy we had never seen before. He was sitting on a fallen tree, staring at the ground. He looked about our age, maybe a year or two older, with dark, tousled hair and piercing blue eyes. "Hey, who are you?" Michael called out, always the first to extend a hand. The boy looked up, his expression unreadable. "Bernard," he said softly. "I've never seen you around here before," I said, stepping closer. "Do you go to our school?" Bernard shook his head. "Just moved here." "Cool," Michael said, grinning. "You want to play with us?" Bernard nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. We welcomed him into our group, and for the rest of the day we ran through the woods, playing games and climbing trees. Bernard was quiet, almost shy, but there was something about him that intrigued us. He moved with a strange grace, his eyes always watchful, as if he were constantly on guard. Zachary, true to form, tested Bernard's boundaries. He teased him, called him names, but Bernard never reacted the way Zachary expected. He would simply stare at Zachary, his expression calm and composed, until Zachary would eventually give up and move on. One day, Zachary brought his disposable camera, one of those old ones with the film you had to get developed. "Let's take a picture," he said, gathering us together. We huddled close, Bernard standing slightly apart, and Zachary snapped a picture. It captured a moment in time, the four of us smiling and carefree. That picture would later become a haunting reminder of the events that would unfold. As the summer wore on, Bernard's presence became a regular part of our days. He never spoke much about his family or where he lived, and whenever we asked, he would change the subject. But we didn't mind, we were just happy to have another friend. Then one day, Bernard didn't show up. We waited at our usual spot in the woods, but he never came. The next day was the same, and the day after that. Weeks turned into months, and we never saw Bernard again. We assumed he had moved away as mysteriously as he had arrived. Life went on. The years passed, and our childhood adventures became distant memories. I joined the police force, driven by a desire to protect and serve. It was a job that required me to face the darkest aspects of humanity, but it also gave me a sense of purpose. One rainy afternoon, while cleaning out my attic, I stumbled upon a box of old photos. Among them was the picture Zachary had taken that summer. I stared at it, a flood of memories washing over me. There we were, Michael, Zachary, Bernard, and me, captured in a moment of innocent joy. A strange feeling settled in my gut. Bernard's face seemed to stare back at me, his eyes more intense than I remembered. I took the photo to work the next day, unable to shake the feeling that something was off. I showed it to a colleague who specialised in cold cases. "Hey, take a look at this," I said, handing him the photo. "Do you recognise this kid?" He examined it closely, his brow furrowing. "Give me a second." He walked over to his desk and began sifting through files. After a few minutes, he pulled out a faded document and compared it to the photo. "This is Bernard," he said, his voice hushed. "Bernard Thompson. He went missing almost 30 years ago. It's one of our oldest cold cases." A chill ran down my spine. How could Bernard have been missing for 30 years when we met him only 15 years ago? It didn't make sense. Driven by a hunch, I decided to investigate further. I returned to the woods where we used to play, the place where we had first met Bernard. The trees had grown thicker, the paths more overgrown, but it was still the same place. I walked deeper into the woods, my mind racing with possibilities. As I reached a small clearing, I noticed something half buried in the underbush. It was a piece of fabric, tattered and weathered by time. I knelt down, my heart pounding, and began to dig. The earth was damp and heavy, but I kept at it, my hands trembling with a mixture of fear and determination. Then I saw it, a skeletal hand, fingers curled as if reaching for something. I unearthed the rest of the remains, my breath catching in my throat. There, in the shallow grave, lay the skeletal remains of a child, long forgotten and alone. I called for backup, my mind numb with shock. As we waited for the forensic team to arrive, I couldn't shake the feeling that Bernard was still watching me, his piercing blue eyes following my every move. The investigation confirmed what I already knew. The remains belonged to Bernard Thompson, a boy who had gone missing nearly 30 years ago. but the mystery of how he appeared to us 15 years ago remained unsolved. I often think back to that summer, to the strange, quiet boy who appeared out of nowhere and then vanished just as suddenly. Bernard's ghost, or whatever he had been, left an indelible mark on our lives. Michael and Zachary, when I told them what I had discovered, were as bewildered as I was. We may never know the full truth of what's happened, but I can't help but feel that Bernard was trying to tell us something. Perhaps his restless spirit sought companionship, a way to reach out and be remembered. Or maybe there are things in this world that we simply cannot understand, forces beyond our comprehension that shape our destinies. Whatever the case, I know one thing for certain: some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved, lingering in the shadows of our past, forever haunting our memories. A strange voice came from my daughter. My daughter is 2 years old and can speak good, but her talk has that baby quality to it, meaning I know what she's saying, but she doesn't pronounce them clearly. Tonight, as I was putting her down for bed, I was doing the normal routine of her getting dressed, reading her books, saying her prayers, and singing to her. As I was singing to her, I heard a voice come from my daughter. Shh, shh, shut your mouth. And I was shocked, for many reasons. Number one, it didn't sound anything like my daughter. Number two, it was pronounced clearly like a 6-year-old would have said it. Number three, we don't say that phrase in my house. Even if we did, we wouldn't say it around our toddler. It gave me the chills, because as her dad, I know my baby, all her mannerisms, how she speaks, how she acts, and so on. The voice that came out of her was not my daughter's voice. Has anyone else experienced something like this? Another Reddit user said, "Okay, I actually did something very similar when I was young and terrified my mum. I was asleep and she was trying to move my pillow back under my head. And I said, 'Get out, now!' in a deep voice that apparently didn't sound like me. My mum is not superstitious at all and doesn't believe in anything paranormal, but she said it scared her." Another commenter said, "I had something very similar. It's freaking me out seeing all these comments about these experiences. I was in bed, mum and I were sharing as I was moving house, when apparently I started making whining noises, so she tried waking me up. I'm epileptic, so she was concerned I might be about to have a seizure. I sat straight up in bed, staring at her, then said in a very deep and gravelly voice, not at all like mine, 'It's too late, they're already here.' Honestly, it terrified me to hear what I had said. I had no memory of it at all, but it frightened us both." Chased by a disembodied laugh at night. I recently posted an encounter with some sort of entity or creature that resembled the beings in the Fresno Nightcrawlers video, and decided that I wanted to post this other encounter I had that happened near the same location I had with the Nightcrawler. If I recall correctly, this happened about a month after my first experience, so I'd say around November of 2018, Northern Virginia. My friends and I were out one night and wanted to go to a store to get some snacks to eat. It was around 10 PM and there was only one store we knew of that was opened in that area, so we started walking to it. We decided to cut through a golf course just for the heck of it and stopped at a big pond that was in the middle of the golf course. We stayed there for maybe 10 minutes, just talking and sitting around. While we were chilling, we heard a laugh come from quite a distance away. We didn't think anything of it at first, because it sounded like it came from a distant neighborhood that was bordering the golf course. One thing I should add before continuing is that the golf course either had its lights off that night, or it didn't have any to begin with. It was pitch black, except for the faint light from the moon and the houses in the distance. Anyways, the laugh didn't scare us at first, because it was far away. We got up and started walking for the path that leads to the exit of the golf course when we heard the laugh again, only this time much closer. The area we were chilling at was one at the edge of the pond, and on the other edge of the pond was a small wooded area, and that's where we heard the second laugh. After the second laugh, we decided to just get the hell out of there and went for the exit even faster. Once we got to the path, we heard the laugh again for the third time. This time it was at the exact area we were chilling at. At that point, we all got off the path and ran through another set of woods that would lead us to the main road. But before we got into the tree line, one of my friends and I looked back to see what it was. There was nobody there. Despite there being no light posts, there were no trees by where we were at, and the moonlight would have at least been enough for us to see the shape or silhouette of a person. While running through the woods, we heard the laugh once more, this time on the path we were just at. We got through the woods and made it to the main road, and that was the end of the encounter. One thing I want to add is that the time between the first and second laugh was about a minute or two, and the distance between them was really far. We barely heard the first laugh, and a minute later we heard it at the other side of the pond, loud and clear. Whatever it was moving unnaturally fast. The laugh itself sounded like a classic witch cackle. I understand that it could have been 2 or more people trying to be funny, which is why it seemed like it was moving fast. But the part that gets me is that we didn't see anyone. We had a clear view of the pond, and we were still close enough to it when we heard the third laugh, but there was no one there. Despite the laugh clearly coming from that area, the laughs were also very similar. It didn't sound like two different people laughing. Something just pretended to be me. So I was in my bedroom. My mum was in the living room with the lights off. This happened around 8:30 PM. It is now past 10 PM. My mum heard me come down the hallway into the kitchen. She asked if I was okay, and she apparently heard a mumble back in my voice. She said she didn't know what it said. After that, the kitchen lit up as if I was using my phone flashlight to find something. Then, it was gone. After that, she texted me to ask if I had been out in the living room. So I got up and left my room to talk to her and tell her that I hadn't. I'd been in my room working on a project for the last few hours. So now we were both freaked out. She kept asking if I was messing with her, and I swore I wasn't. We have been experiencing a few things here and there, like strange noises, things moving around. My dad has also had a few of his own experiences. I think one was also about me, so whatever it is, it keeps impersonating me. I'm not sure if it's entirely related, but for the past year or so I've been feeling this very off energy around me. I've never been able to see ghosts, but I've been able to feel them, their energies and such. But this one is just off. The only way I could describe it is wrong. It's very inconsistent for when it shows up. Sometimes it's gone for a week and comes back, or it's every other day, multiple nights in a row, etc. I also really only feel it in my room, sometimes elsewhere in the house, and it's usually at night. I'm not sure if they are related, and if they are, I'm not sure how to get rid of this thing. Any advice? I don't believe in Christianity or anything, so I wouldn't feel comfortable getting the house blessed or anything. I work security for a 100-year-old hotel, and I've seen some strange things. For context, I am highly skeptical, but no stranger to the paranormal. I'm the type that believes demons exist, but most ghost stories are overreactions of easily explained phenomena or simple hoaxes. About 3 months ago, I started working security for a hotel that was built back in the 1920s by a major hotel chain that has changed hands multiple times and is now owned by one of the biggest hotel chains. I'm not saying which, so the company can't sue me. Now, from what I've been told, paranormal activity is not a common occurrence in the hotel. But some years back, the Make-A-Wish Foundation started sending some children here because, well, it's a major resort at one of the most popular beaches on the East Coast. Why wouldn't they? However, the hotel was not informed of this and didn't realise what was happening until several children died in their rooms over the course of a few weeks. Supposedly, on quiet nights, you can hear children playing with a ball in the North Tower ballrooms at night. For years, guests complained of children playing ball loudly next to their rooms, and even when security would check, there would be no one there. This has not happened in a while, but going into the story, you should understand that my opinion on the cause of what I've seen may be warped by being told this story. Now, every shift we do a floor check, especially on night shift when I work. At first, I never noticed anything strange. I got a little creeped out by the quiet of the floors at night, but nothing supernatural. The hotel has 2 separate towers separated by a restaurant and shopping area that connects them. About a month into the job, and suddenly I started feeling like something was following me on my floor checks, especially in the ST, which is the biggest and tallest and where I understand most jumpers choose because all the rooms facing the ocean have sliding glass doors with a short railing in front, and you can put the rest together from there. Anyway, it got really bad in October. Maybe the spooky season had an effect on me. But this feeling of being watched and followed never went away. As the weeks have gone on, I started seeing distorted faces in windows as I passed by, to the point I no longer look at them. The floor pattern sometimes reflects on the glass, and the mind could easily make a face with the pattern. But some of these faces were up further on the glass where this wouldn't have been possible. When I focus up there, sometimes I can almost hear whispers in the back of my mind, urging me to commit suicide or lambasting me for the mistakes I've made, or even telling me insecurities I have about myself I've never told anyone about. In the last few weeks, some strange physical and auditory phenomena have occurred. Part of what we do on floor checks is close doors we find open, and some of the doors lately have been more difficult to close. One in particular, I had to use all my strength to slam shut. The ice machines on each floor sometimes make a banging noise while in operation, so I usually attribute any noise I hear from the vending area to that. But sometimes it almost has sounded like something was rummaging in the garbage cans, and when I go to investigate, I'd hold my keys so they wouldn't jingle in case it was a person. And as soon as I do, the rummaging noises will stop. On a couple of occasions, I felt what I can only describe as hands touching me while closing certain doors, sometimes just a tickle, and other times a brush against the back of my hand, and even a feeling like someone on the other side of the door is pulling it in the opposite direction to me. I now dread the floor checks, especially after 3 AM. I'm not trying to make this seem scarier than it is, but these things intensify the closer it gets to that hour. Whatever they are, they aren't friendly, and I think they know I can sense them. They really don't like that I can sense them. Like some nights, that watched and followed feeling is more like a burning hatred directly towards my existence, like being stalked by an enemy or a predator. I'm pretty religious, and whenever these things happen, I always pray to God, and when I do, it usually goes away, whatever it is. The scariest thing though, is the last time it was that intense I heard something growl next to my ear. I've never been hurt by them, so my assumption is they can't hurt anyone physically, but they try to communicate often and want their presence acknowledged. Almost as though that's where their power comes from. My grandmother told me once that demons truly have no power. They're only capable of whatever we believe them to be capable of. My mounting fear is feeding them whatever they are. My experiences could just be me seeing things or looking too much into something completely explainable. I don't know, this is just what I've seen and heard. Whatever it is hunting me at night, my co-workers don't know about it, or at least they aren't telling anyone. I am bipolar, but medicated, and I've never had hallucinations. Maybe I'm just crazy and seeing things, but if that's the case, why am I not having any other signs of a manic episode or psychosis, and why am I only seeing things in that one part of the building? Subscribe for more videos like this.